Oh, shucks. The Saints have their new quarterback. That's the worst pun I've ever made, and I'm sure fans are absolutely livid. Tyler Shough is the new quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. They took him at pick 40. Let's talk about it right here on the Straight Up Saints podcast.
You're listening to the Straight Up Saints podcast.
What is up, Who Dat Nation? Welcome back inside another edition of the Straight Up Saints podcast. I'm your host, Chris Vogel, and as always, the Straight Up Saints podcast is brought to you by Scott Vicknair Injury Lawyers. You've been injured in any kind of accident, car, truck, 18-wheeler, hurt offshore. Scott Vicknair handles it all. You give him a call at 504-500-1111 for a free consultation. They'll always fight for the win. The Saints making the biggest surprise pick so far of the second round, taking Tyler Shough from Louisville with the 40th overall pick, and it is one that let's just call it a spade. No one's going to be happy about this for the most part. I'm not naive to what goes on Twitter. I read about every mention that comes my way, and there are a lot. And I've known for the last couple of weeks, as the Saints have started to show interest in Tyler Shough, that you Saints fans weren't having any of it. And I will try to explain my thoughts on the pick, but as always, I'm going to encourage you guys to put yours in the chat because I'll get up every comment possible. And always make sure to like the video. It really greatly helps out the channel, and we appreciate it. So let's dive into it. A lot of people are going to ask the question, why did they pick Tyler Shough? Shedeur Sanders was on the board, and everyone really liked him. And I can't answer or speak on behalf of Kellen Moore, but what I know that Saints really value are certain traits that Tyler Shough has when it comes to the size, when it comes to the ability to throw on the run. And I think arm talent-wise, and I tell everyone who gets really mad about this player and the Saints going and making this pick, Tyler Shough, arm talent-wise, it's there. It's undeniable. It is something that when you see him out there in terms of tape, it's awfully impressive. That said, I get the injury concern. Broken collarbone one year, broken fibula the next year. It is concerning that he spent 3 years at Oregon and 3 years at Texas Tech before he had one good year at Louisville. And I'm going to be fair. When I watch college basketball and I see these, 24, 25-year-old seniors, I'm sitting there from the couch going, when is this dude going to get a job? And in Tyler Shough's situation, 25 years old. I said 45, but it feels that way. Going to be 26 in September before he starts a game. So I know fans are going to bring that up. I know fans are going to be livid about that aspect. For me, my bigger concern is the injury history than the age. I think it comes down to, can you play or not? Age be damned. Joe Burrow was an older prospect. Obviously, Joe Burrow was a much better prospect. But that thing's happened. For New Orleans, this is how I view it, and this is where I think fans are going to have to come to grips with it and try to figure out where you're going to be on board. You don't have to pick a side, but the same people who have been advocating to say if Kellen Moore likes his quarterback, he should be able to pick his quarterback, are now the same ones aggravated that he did pick a quarterback. And I get it, man. Shedeur Sanders is exciting. Jalen Milroe, that's someone I would have loved to have seen if the Saints took him and what would be the plan for him because he's got untapped potential. But you go with Tyler Shough, and I know part of it right now is just trying to be the optimistic fan of holding out hope and thinking that maybe this guy can break the cycle of what's been a brutal 5-year stretch of quarterback play in New Orleans. And I don't know if he will. I don't even know if he'll beat out Spencer Rattler in a quarterback competition yet because those things have to materialize. But what I do know is that clearly Kellen Moore valued him. And as we got closer to the draft, everyone kept saying it was Cam Ward for the Saints as their number one QB. They knew they weren't going to get him. And then it was Tyler Shough. And I know people didn't want to listen to it because the idea of Shedeur in New Orleans is awesome. Like, I'll be honest, I haven't bought a Saints jersey in years. I would have bought a Shedeur jersey. Like, it's cool. I get it. But when everyone is telling you it's not going to happen and so many fans wanted to just continue to convince themselves it was going to, yeah, people are going to be disappointed. And again, I don't know if Tyler Shough's going to be good. I'm going to say the same thing I said about Kelvin Banks, but it's a little bit different because Kelvin Banks is obviously a superior prospect by every metric possible. I don't know if Tyler Shough's going to be good. You don't know if Tyler Shough's going to be good. And I know people are going to say, I'm no longer a Saints fan. This is it. This is the last straw. Bro, we just watched Dennis Allen for 3 fucking years do absolutely shit on the sidelines. And we all sat there and we watched and we kept coming back to this team. So, no, you can say that this is going to be the final straw for you, but I absolutely doubt it is. I'm sure every Saints fan who says right now, I'm done with this team, I'll talk to you in September when the games start and everyone's going to be watching because that's just how this NFL goes. We're all kind of addicted to it in some way, shape, or fashion. So, Tyler Shough, the player, and then I'll get into every comment that you guys have. The height is there. The arm talent is there. I am very, very nervous about how skittish he gets in the pocket when there's pressure. I don't want to bring up this name and give everyone PTSD, but it reminds me of Derek Carr. So that part gets me a little nervous. You know what? But that brings me to a good point. For everyone that's going to be upset right now about Tyler Shough being the Saints quarterback, just understand this. Tyler Shough going to the Saints means Derek Carr gets the fuck out of New Orleans. And there's nothing that puts a bigger smile on my face knowing that schmuck with his car reviews can now leave, because it's been aggravating watching him and the way he's conducted himself the last 2 years. So if you need a positive, there's your positive. And if you can't take that, you're a liar, because we've all been complaining about Derek Carr for the last 2.5 years, maybe more. So Tyler Shough is in, nervous about the pocket and the way he manipulates it at times. Throwing on the run, particularly to the left side of the field, is awfully impressive for him. So we'll see what the Saints end up doing there. I know everyone's going to say this is the pick that sinks the ship. I think that's a little hyperbolic. They've made a lot worse picks before. So let's get into comments here that you guys have, and we'll go from there. Fangs World with the super chat says Sanders equals culture change. Tyler equals Kellen's quarterback. Yeah, I mean, I will not deny the culture change one. I will not deny that. But again, that wasn't who his quarterback was. And to your point, that's what it kind of comes down to. That's what it comes down to. And for anyone who's like, oh, well, why didn't they pick Shedeur? I'll ask that for every other team that's in this draft right now. And I'm a Shedeur fan, by the way. I love Shedeur. I've interviewed him before. He's very polite. He's very respectful. I don't buy any of the shit about him having the worst interviews. I've interviewed him before. He's a cool dude. He's a respectful dude. I doubt behind closed doors there's problems. But clearly there's a reason for it. There's a reason for that. So, you know, that's just where I'm at with it. I know people are frustrated, but this is where we're at. Max says, boo, what the F, bro? Some guy says, fuck. Shad Golden says, Loomis is unbelievable. This was not Loomis's pick, guys. This is a Kellen Moore pick. Whether you want to believe it or not, this is a Kellen Moore pick. So I'm not trying to defend Loomis. I've been on his ass for the last God knows how many years now. But if you're going to say, oh, who made this pick? It's clear as day. It was a Kellen Moore pick. That's the truth of the matter. Max says if we're grabbing quarterback, there's still two better than Shough. I feel like this was Loomis calling the shot here. What the F? I really don't. I really think that this was a Kellen Moore pick. Xavier says this man has only played 20 freaking games. What are we doing? Like I said, I don't love the career path either. It's concerning to have 3 years at Oregon, not do much. 3 years at Texas Tech, not do much. And then 1 year at Louisville at age 25 and you pop off. Like I get the concerns. I get the concerns. Not everyone's route's the same, though. It's not. Hunter says, dude, why? Why the fuck we picked this guy over Shedeur? So frustrating. Kind of goes back to what I said before. Look, Shedeur was clearly not the guy that they valued, in that moment. I think for them, if they wanted Shedeur, they would have done it in the first round, truthfully. And as we got closer to the draft, you heard everyone. And it didn't even have to be, your local guys, even the national dudes like Adam Schefter, like it's not happening. Max says our new phrase for this year is all shucks. Yeah, I mean, that's probably what we're going to have to say after every interception. And by the way, I want to point this out, whether it's Tyler Shough starting or it's even Spencer Rattler starting, which obviously I don't think it's going to be Rattler. I think they're clearly, they're clearly invested in Tyler Shough, and this is who's going to be the guy for them for at least next season. Whoever it was going to be, there is going to be an insane kind of growing curve and a lot of pains that fans, you're going to have to be patient about. Like regardless of who's a starter, it's probably going to be Tyler Shough. But even if it wasn't Tyler Shough and it was Spencer Rattler, there are going to be moments where you go, well, I don't know where the fuck he was throwing that football or what he was thinking. And that's life of watching a rookie quarterback. No matter how talented or untalented that player might be, that's just life. So fans are going to have to get used to it. Fangs World with another super chat. Thank you for the support. Says, would we have been happy about McCord over Tyler? Some people would have. I wouldn't have personally. Look, I watched Kyle McCord at Ohio State. Didn't think he was awfully impressive. I know he was excellent at Syracuse last season, and I give him respect for that. I do believe that the Saints, if you're telling me whether or not they liked McCord, I believe they probably thought he was a solid quarterback for those mid to late rounds, sure. But I think Shough, the upside is higher. And I know we're talking in hypotheticals, and upside is not what wins you football games. But, if that's what people would prefer over Shough, then that to me, that doesn't work. If you told me Jalen Milroe, I'll get on board with that because I think Milroe's peak is interesting as hell. The lows are bad, but the peak is very high. Donald says, who the fuck is this white boy? Max says, Shough, hell, man, if Banks is another whiff on the O-line, then we just wasted this draft already. I get it. I'm not going to think that way because, truthfully, it's, what's the day today? Is it the 25th, 26th, whatever the hell it is? I'm not going to declare this draft dead on arrival on April 25th. Max says, bro is older than half the league starters already. I'm heated. Look, I get it. I get it. Jerry says, I like it. All right, Jerry, you're probably going to be one of the few in here. Probably going to be one of the few in here, man. Joshua says, people will blame Loomis, but last time I checked, more wanted this. Thank you. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not trying to be the one or two Tyler Shough defenders in a world full of haters. I don't have stock in Tyler Shough. You know, my portfolio didn't shoot up through the roof now because this man was drafted by the Saints. And by the way, okay, I could have if I wanted to bet on this because I felt very, very confident that this was going to be the pick. And if anyone to believe me, just go back to TikTok a couple days ago. I put out my picks. I had Kelvin Banks at 9, and then I had Tyler Shough at 40. And no, I don't have the lotto numbers for next week. But this is the type of thing that us Saints fans get caught in. I'm a victim of it every single time, or I'm guilty of it every time, I should say. We can't be sitting here saying, oh, Kellen Moore needs to get a quarterback because we want Derek Carr to get the fuck out of here. And then they do that. It's like, well, not that one. Okay, well, how about the Steelers? They had a chance to draft Shedeur. They didn't take him. How about the Browns? They had 2 chances tonight to take him. Raiders passed. Giants went up but took Jackson Dart. And again, not a shit on Shedeur Sanders segment here for me. I like Shedeur Sanders. I think Shedeur Sanders could be a solid quarterback in the NFL. I really do. The Saints decided to go with Tyler Shough. So if you want to blame someone, then fine, blame Kellen Moore. But are you really going to blame Kellen Moore before he actually gets to coach this team? I think that'd be a little ridiculous. Fangs World with another super chat. 2 offensive picks to start. Let's get Mike Green. I do think the Saints next round, if you're trying to upgrade something, how about the cornerback room? You know, I think the cornerback room can use another boundary guy. Could definitely use D-line help, though. So, I can't be against that. Will Green make it all the way there, though? I don't know. Ed says, kid has an arm, old as fuck, and injury prone, but I saw him play, and he can play. He can. So he's better than Shedeur. You got to be kidding me. Look, only time will tell, right? Either this ends up being the biggest mistake the Saints made or the best decision. We'll see. But I can say that for so many teams when it comes to Shedeur. This isn't just a, Saints-specific thing, okay? Because what happens if Shedeur sucks? You know what's going to happen? Everyone who's banging on the Saints right now for not picking him, they're not going to say jack shit. That's just how it goes. If Shedeur sucks and he's out of the league in 5 years from now, no one's going to say anything. So, this whole, revisionist history thing that everyone wants to have already, let's see it play out before we even get to that. Joshua says, don't like it. His age and he's injury prone. Don't let it. Saints will be right back at it next year looking for a quarterback. Maybe they will. And you know what, guys? That's the way I'm looking at it right now. You're going to say, oh, well, they wasted a second-round pick. All right, either Shough works out, and guess what? The Saints have their quarterback for the next 5, 6, 7 years, or it doesn't work out, and they might be picking top 5 next year because they were so bad this year. So the people who want them to tank, you might get your wish next year. And the people who want them to find their quarterback, you might get your wish. But everyone loves to complain about shit, and I complain more than most people, trust me. But you might get your option. And for people saying, oh, they just wasted a second-round pick. Bro, they wasted a second-round pick on Isaiah Foskey. They took Isaiah Foskey, and I have not seen that man do shit other than show up to the casino, okay? And when it comes to Tyler Shough, that's where we're going to blow a gasket over a second-round pick? Literally, Isaiah Foskey hasn't done anything other than wipe his ass in New Orleans, and we're going to say that Tyler Shough's the second-round pick that they waste? Come on. And again, he might suck, but let's see how it plays out. He's going to be given the opportunity. And who knows? Justin Davis says Saints will be taking a quarterback next season. Tank for Arch is on. We'll get into that. I still have my doubts about Arch, though. I still have my doubts about not the player, whether or not he'll declare next year. I could see him staying at Texas for 2 years. Derek Butts with a super chat. Derek, thank you for the support. Says, question is why at 40, no one was taking him? Here's the way I view it, right? The Saints made this pick with conviction. And if you make this pick with conviction and you believe that this guy's good, why in the world would you decide to play a risky game where you say, okay, I'm going to go different position here and maybe I'll trade up later to try and get him. What if someone takes him? So you got to take him at 40. You have to. I think it shows a little bit of conviction from this team. That's the way I see it. You guys don't have to agree with it, but that's just my assessment. Brian says, bro, if they're going to burn 40 on him, they better run him out here and get this over with. Look, he's going to get his opportunities. He's going to get his opportunities. There's no question about it. And I think a lot of what the Saints are going to do now is build. They're going to try to build around him. Will it work? I'm not sure. For the record, by the way, okay? Cam Jordan just tweeted, let's go. All right. And I'm not saying that means he's going to be good, but Cam Jordan and the vets seem to be okay with this move. I think Saints fans can be just fine with it. Xavier says we literally just drafted a new Derek Carr. The funny thing is with Derek Carr, the biggest problem with him for me is not the player as much as it is the way they conduct themselves. So if he ends up being Derek Carr, obviously I don't think that's good enough to win a Super Bowl. But if he's Derek Carr without all the annoyance and the Instagram reels of a car review and taking shots at, I can't wait to go back to Fresno, I think the Saints will take that player. Checks like Nike says, I told y'all Loomis got CTE. He's probably got worse than CTE. Best Villager says, fire Mickey Loomis. He's a devil. 3 consecutive years of injury. Are you serious? Javier says, I'd rather they address more of the defense. Had a ton of quality on the defensive side. I'm okay with that complaint. I get it. I totally get it. My argument or my counterpoint would be this, right? You brought in Kellen Moore. You want him to establish his offense. So what do, right? First round, you get an offensive tackle. Frustrating that you needed to take one because the Trevor Penning pick obviously hasn't worked, but you're hoping that Banks and Fuaga can kind of set the tone on the outside as your tackles. And now you're, fingers crossed that Tyler Shough can end up being something. Again, I don't know if Tyler Shough is going to end up being something for the Saints. He might end up being absolute ass for them. But when you have a new head coach, especially an offensive-minded coach, youngest head coach in the NFL right now, I'm okay with them going offense heavy here. Now, I do think they have to start addressing the defense, though, and I would do it as early as round 3. Whodat318 says we could have got him in the 3rd round. Why waste the pick? I think that's a hypothetical, and we don't know that for sure. We really don't know. Max says I'd rather whiff on Shador than Shough. Yeah, that's fine. A lot of fans would want that. I get that. But clearly that's not the case right now. And look, man, I wouldn't be surprised if Jalen Milroe gets drafted before Shador. Will that fan base say the same thing? Maybe. It's possible. Pablo says, if the Saints graded Shough as the second best quarterback in the class, then he'll have to wait and see how he does when he plays. That being said, there are a lot of holes left to fill. Of course. And by the way, they were not all going to get filled in this draft. They still need cornerback help. They still need wide receiver help. They still need tight end help. They still need another running back. They need another offensive guard. They need another defensive tackle. They need another edge rusher. They need a safety. They need everything. So, yeah, it wasn't all going to get addressed, and I totally agree with that, Pablo. But to your point, and this is what I'm trying to preach here, and I know I shouldn't say it because I'm a very impatient human being, football stuff aside. I'm very impatient. But we got to practice a little bit of patience here. Can we see him play in the NFL first before we just, convince ourselves that this guy is not it and he's going to be terrible? Like, come on. Like, let's just be a little fair with things. So, again, we'll see what happens. I'm not ready to just kind of declare that this guy is not going to be anything special or that he's going to be absolute crap. I really think it's unfair if we go that route. Jediah says the Saints coaching staff has given their fans zero reason to be excited for this season. Worst quarterback room in the league. Yeah, I get that, but what is going to change that? That's my question, guys. What was going to change that? The quarterback room was going to be bad whether or not they drafted Tyler Shough. Just A. Davis says either Rattler or Shough both not winning 5 games next season, so top pick. It is very possible. Rob says injury-prone 27-year-old. Again, the age to me turns 26 in September. That's not what concerns me as much as the injuries. The injuries do concern me, especially when they happen so frequently. Trevor Lawrence is a month younger than Shough and was drafted 4 years ago. That's a pretty good stat. Chris, you can say this is a horrendous pick. It's okay. Again, I'm not. This is my whole point, though. A lot of people married themselves to the idea that they need to take Shador. And I was a person who said I would like to see Shador on the Saints. But I also said I'd like to see Jalen Milroe on the Saints. I wanted the Saints to take a stab at a quarterback because everyone loves to say, well, the next year is going to be better. And we don't know that. It's all a guessing game. So I wanted the Saints to take a stab at a quarterback. And that's why I'm not mad right now. I know a lot of people are going to be angry. I know a lot of people are going to say they're done watching this team. They needed to take a stab at quarterback. And guess what? If Tyler Shough stinks, take another quarterback next year. And if that one stinks eventually, take another one. They should continue to be drafting quarterbacks until they find their answer. That's just the way I look at it. And I'm not going to change my opinion on that. That's just how I see it. Dan says, I'd rather just roll with Rattler and then get a quarterback in 2026. I totally get that, but it's very clear the Saints didn't want to go that route. And I think that kind of became very apparent as we got along in this process. If the Saints wanted to take one, I think they would have. I mean, if the Saints wanted to skip quarterback, and ride it out with Spencer Rattler, I think that would have happened already. Jesse Davis says, Kellen has won with all kinds of QBs, but the talent on the team is less talented. Yeah, of course. I mean, look, you go from the Eagles, and they've had the best roster in the NFL for the last couple of years, and now you go to the Saints where, there's holes everywhere, and a lot of the Saints' good players are older, right? DeMario's older. Alvin's getting older. I love Eric McCoy, and Eric McCoy's not old, but he's no spring chicken at this point, right? He's getting into that prime of his career. Olave's a good young piece. Shaheed's a good young piece. We'll see about Kool-Aid McKinstry. We'll see about Alontae Taylor. Obviously, Fuaga's an intriguing piece for them, but the Saints would have a ton of upside guys. Chase Young is one of those where we'll see about him. And when it comes to the Eagles, just the offense alone for the Eagles, right? Because if it's not Jalen Hurts, it's Saquon. If it's not Saquon, it's A.J. Brown. If it's not A.J. Brown, it's Smitty. If it's not Smitty, it's Mailata. If it's not Mailata, it's Layton Johnson. Eagles alone got 8 superstars on offense. So yeah, there's going to be a drop in talent for sure. Wesley says, bro, what did Shedeur do? I just think, guys, I think as the NFL progresses, these teams are going to look for special traits, whether it's arm talent or, mobility. And I think Shedeur lacks that. I do think that Shedeur, where people are going to get concerned, is footwork. Now, that said, I would make an argument that a lot of young quarterbacks these days don't have great footwork. They don't really do it like the older quarterbacks used to. But look, time will tell. And the best thing about this, and I'll say this for wherever Shedeur goes, I don't know which team's going to take him at all, although maybe the Steelers will in the 3rd round. He's going to have a chance to prove everyone wrong. Just like Tyler Shough's going to have a chance to prove people wrong, because I'm sure there's going to be doubters in that regard. So we'll see how this all plays out. We don't care if he's going to be good. He ain't the right pick at 27 years old and injury prone, especially at 40. All right, man. Look, we'll come back to this. We'll come back to this next year. And like I said, either he will stink and they'll be picking top 5 and you will get your beloved top tier quarterback pick that people want, whether it's Arch or Drew Aller or whoever. And either that happens or Tyler Shough worked. And if Tyler Shough worked out, the same people who are ripping him right now are going to be the same people who are going to be cheering him. And that's just how the game works. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Eric says, I don't want to be a fan anymore. Bad Juju says, I'm skipping being a fan next year. I'm out. Marcus says, now go get Mason Taylor in the 3rd. Funny thing is, as soon as I started the live stream, I saw that I think the Jets took him, right? That's a good pick for them. He's a hell of a tight end. Brian with the Y says, Saints are an embarrassment. I mean, I agree with that. I don't know if the Tyler Shough pick is what hits, kind of hammers across that point. The Saints are embarrassing for a bunch of other reasons. They're embarrassing every time their GM goes to the podium and says something stupid. They're embarrassing that they kept Dennis Allen for 3 straight years. They're embarrassing that they've pretty much empowered Derek Carr to kind of say, oh, my shoulder hurts. Well, actually, I don't know if my shoulder hurts. I'll get back to you. I can't give you clarity right now, but who knows? Maybe you'll feel better tomorrow. Put some fucking Tiger Balm on and it'll feel okay. So Saints are embarrassing for a lot of reasons. I don't believe today was the final straw for this team. There's a bunch of final straws that they've had, Gary says 4-13 season, finally Mickey gets canned. I don't know if that means he'll get canned. I think it depends how the team plays, but look, it's very simple. If Kellen Moore doesn't work out, Mickey will be gone. They're not giving him a 3rd go around in the post Sean Payton era. Forgive says that's kind of it for Rattler probably, huh? I would imagine so, but we'll see, man. We'll see. The best thing about this damn sport is you are the person who's writing your story. And if you're Spencer Rattler, you have a chance to go into the offseason and compete for the job, and I'm sure he'll be given a chance. That the only one who really shouldn't be given a chance, and even he'll be given one, is Spencer Rattler. I mean, not Spencer, Jake Haener, excuse me. So, and that's because Jake Haener was rough. So we'll see what happens. I believe Shough will probably end up being the starter, but Rattler will get his opportunity for sure. Got a super chat here from Half-Life. Thank you for support. Says, if it gets Derek Carr out, I'm fine with it. Or I'm with it, you said. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. And I said that at the top of this show. And, for me, and I mentioned this yesterday when the Saints drafted Kelvin Banks, a lot of people were like, well, who are Kelvin Banks and Fuaga protecting? Who are they blocking for at the quarterback spot? And I said, the Saints had three options. You can roll with Rattler. You can try to mend the bridges mend the fences, with Derek Carr, or you could draft a quarterback. And I said the one that would have disgusted me the most would be to mend the fence with Derek Carr, water under the bridge. He's back at quarterback. That would be the one that would aggravate me the most because I don't think that man should be the quarterback of the Saints. And now this guarantees that he won't. And again, you don't make picks to say, oh, well, this guy's gone, so aren't you happy about that? But you know what? Derek Carr's been such an ass the last couple of months that, yeah, I am happy that he is going to be gone now. And this is kind of, the final nail in the coffin for Derek Carr. And wherever he ends up next, not even going to wish him good luck like I do for most players because he really is a piece of work. D says, I'm a Vikings fan, but I'm mad for y'all. Look, man, I'm chilling. I can't speak for everyone else, obviously. Fred says, horrible day one and day two pick. How is day one pick horrible now, though? That honest question. I'm okay with people getting mad about Shough because, I think more than any other position in sports, when you take a quarterback, it's a gamble. But Kelvin Banks' film is good, okay? Very, very good. There's concerns about the balance and whether or not he's overextended at times when he's in pass protection, but I think he's a hell of a player. Allowed 1 sack last year, at 40-plus starts. And if you guys want to get mad about Shough's age, because he is old, he's going to be 26 in September, Kelvin Banks is 21. He'll be 22 for his second season in the league. So, there's room to grow for that player. D23 says, let's just remember that people complain regardless of who's picked. People even complain about Cameron Jordan. Let's at least give Kellen Moore a chance. I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Javier says, I do not get the hate on the kid. Hate what's going on there for Sanders. Need a wide receiver, cornerback, D-line, no specific order. Yeah, I agree. Those all positions of needs for this team. All positions of needs. H.E. Pennypacker says, Kellen was happier than a pig in shit when they were all high-fiving. I missed that reaction. I guess I'll get back to it. I'll have to find it. If you guys have it, can someone send it to me, whether it's via DM or just at me? I didn't see the reactions, but if you guys can, that'd be great. Jim says, Kellen's got to go. This man, he thinks he's going to stay healthy with our medical staff. I'll give you that one. The Saints medical staff doesn't have the greatest track record. Manuel says, really wanted Shador. Oh, well, it's rough being a Saints fan these days. Hopefully Rattler can do something or Kellen is right about Shough and prove us all wrong. I'm cool with that mentality. Look, guys, you don't have to agree with everything, right? I'm not trying to be the guy, I have to agree with everything the Saints. I have serious doubts that Tyler Shough's going to be a good quarterback because he would have to be an anomaly from the norm, right? Older prospect, 7 years of college football, has really only had one good season. I'll give you 1.5 good seasons of college football, right? So for him to turn into a really good quarterback, he would have to go against what the norm is, what the history tells you of this league. And I get that. But I'm, as a Saints fan, going to be hoping that he proves everyone wrong. And I believe that Kellen Moore, who has not even coached a single fucking game for the Saints yet, should be given the opportunity to show what he can do with his quarterback. So we'll see what happens. Jay Rambo says, I might take a break from being a Saints fan this year. We never make the right decision. I'll say this, and I said this yesterday. If being a Saints fan is too much right now in terms of stress and it's better for your mental health to unplug, I will always advise people to unplug because it's not worth it, right? Over football to really feel frustrated. But if it's just I just don't want to support this one player and everything else is okay, then I probably wouldn't agree with that, Can we trade Carr to the Steelers? I think if Aaron Rodgers were to retire and not join the Steelers, I think that would be the spot for him. So maybe we'll keep an eye on that. Pablo says they've drafted a lot worse in the second. Remember Stanley Jean-Baptiste? Yeah, that's another player, right? Stanley Jean-Baptiste, who didn't do shit, although that is one of the best freaking names I've ever heard in my life. He didn't do anything for the Saints. Didn't do anything. Sanders comes with a circus ownership. Didn't need. Example, the president tweeted about him. I will say for the New Orleans, I do think that was a concern. I can't speak for them, but new head coach. So you're Kellen Moore. You're in your 30s. You were the youngest head coach in the NFL. If you draft Shador, and I'm not saying this is right. But Saints struggle or something didn't go the right way, Dion is Dion, right? Like, he is one of the biggest stars in football and will always be one of the biggest stars in football. And he has a huge platform, obviously, at Colorado. If the Saints do something he didn't like from a coaching perspective, and he goes out there and blasts the Saints, at a press conference, do the Saints want to deal with that pushback? I don't know. That's why I thought the Steelers made a lot of sense for Shedeur, because Mike Tomlin, he didn't have to fear anyone. It's Mike fucking Tomlin, okay? Like, that dude is untouchable when it comes to certain things. But I think that could have played a factor for sure. And I don't know for certain, but that's kind of where I'm at. Matthew says 32 other teams passed Shedeur Sanders, some twice, many QB needy, but yet countless fans are heated about not taking Sanders when little NFL scouts are out on him. Odd how casual fans think they know all. This is how the NFL draft always works, right? People are like, I'm going to be happy if a team picks a guy that I like. If they pick a guy that I don't like, I'm going to be pissed. And in reality, we're all just freaking guessing. I'm guessing. You're guessing. Mel Kiper Jr. is guessing. Daniel Jeremiah is guessing. Everyone is guessing. Now, do the teams have an advantage? Yeah. I mean, they got years of experience doing this. This is their livelihood at stake. So, like, they know more than most people. But everyone else is just guessing. And we're all hoping and praying that the Saints got it right. But we don't know. You might say he sucks. You might be right. You might be wrong. I might say he might be decent. He's got talent, and I might be wrong. We'll find out sooner or later, Valentine says we are just not patient with the 34-year-old vet. I thought I was done with this team after the season as I dealt with them enough, but tonight I had hope for a franchise quarterback being drafted. May I ask what there is to be excited for this season? Shit show. I mean, look, I don't know if this is like the selling point, but you got a first-year head coach coming off the best year of his coaching career, obviously, in Philly and what he was able to do, and you do have a new quarterback. And is that like the most ringing endorsement for a team? Fuck no. Like, look, guys, I'm not going to act like the Saints are building something special here. I think the Saints are going to be one of the 5 worst teams in the NFL next year. I do. I just don't think there's a lot of talent on this team, and they have a lot of questions, way more than they got answers. But there is something new about this team. They'll have a new coach, and they'll have a new quarterback. And that doesn't have to intrigue you, but it entices the hell out of me, and I will be watching for that. So we'll see how it all plays out. But I do believe that if you're trying to find, what's the reason to watch, I would say, hey, look at what you got going on right now with this quarterback coach combo. Okay. You can't convince me this coaching staff isn't racist. That's a fucking crazy comment. I'm sorry. Like, again, guys, I'm not going to deny, especially at the quarterback position, whether or not that plays a factor for certain things. I don't believe the Saints made that pick out of, for racial reasons, I would say. Okay. I mean, let's be real here. I think that's a little unfair to say for this organization. And this organization deserves a lot of shit. A lot of shit. I don't know about that one. I think that's a little bit unfair. Forgive says every quarterback Kellen has been with has been successful. Let's give him a shot at least. Yeah. Now look, everyone's going to go, well, he had Dak. Well, he had Hurts. He had Justin Herbert. All right. And Kellen Moore in this year's class said, hey, I think Tyler Shough's really good. He's my second best quarterback on this board. Cam Ward's first. Obviously, that made sense. And the Saints tried to trade for Cam Ward, by the way. So either you trust Kellen Moore to get this right and he evaluated him correctly, or you don't. Boo Crew Stack Guy says, one of the top developers of quarterback talent in the nation, Brian Brown, mentored a pair of quarterbacks who have thrown for over 3,000 yards and over 20 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions last season. Yeah, I believe it was a 23 touchdowns, 6 picks or something like that. Max says by the time the light might come on for him, he'll be 30. Possible. It's possible, man. But by then he wouldn't be, he probably wouldn't be doing much for the Saints. Mo says fire Kellen Moore now. Come on, guys. Come on. Jalen says, are we serious? We lost Adebo and Marshawn. Why not get Will there? We should at least give Rattler another opportunity. Look, I'll say this about Will, right? Because I think Will, obviously, excellent prospect in what he did at Michigan. It's very clear that some teams just weren't okay with the medicals. Now, thankfully for Will Johnson, his slide didn't last too much longer. Got picked 47 by the Cardinals. But, I think for the Saints, it was one of those, as we got closer to the draft, you realize it wasn't going to happen. If you asked me back in February or March, though, and I have tweets about it, I wanted Will Johnson on the Saints. So I can understand that complaint for sure. Anthony says the dumbest pick in NFL history. Guys, do you remember Rick Leonard? You probably think I just made up that name. Saints drafted him. He didn't do shit for them. Stanley Jean-Baptiste, Saints drafted him. He didn't do shit for them. Isaiah Foskey's collecting checks right now for this team. Hasn't done anything for them. They took Peyton Turner, and we still watched after saying we didn't like the pick. I think people will be just fine. Man. Like, let's let this guy play a preseason game and go through it. Ed says this is similar to Bronny James type stuff. That last name, people want to smear it. Unfortunate for Shedeur. It is possible. I would say this about the NFL, though. I think that for this position, especially quarterback, I don't know if teams are willing to fuck around with that, you know? I don't know if teams are. So if teams are honestly passing on him because they're trying to kind of like put him down and humble him, I think that's the dumbest shit that a team can do because you don't mess around with the quarterback position. But who knows? Jay Rambo with a $20 super chat. Thank you so much for the support, man. Greatly appreciate it. He says Shedeur is a better player. Stevie Wonder can see that. We keep making dumb picks. We're not good enough to make pride picks. Get the player that makes the team better. We're acting as if we made the playoffs the last 5 years. Here's the way I see it. So let's break down what you said. So you said Shedeur is a better player. I think unquestionably Shedeur was the better college player. I think unquestionably. I don't think, like, I've seen Shedeur be good. Take out Jackson State, right? So let's just talk about Colorado. I've seen him good for 2 years. Really liked what I saw last year. So his peak at Colorado was better than Tyler Shough's at Louisville. I can't deny that. Although, if anyone's looking for some optimism, I would highly recommend watching Tyler Shough's tape against Miami. I remember watching that game live, and I was like, God damn, like this guy's going stride for stride with Cam Ward. He was great that game. So if you want some optimism, you watch that. So yes, I agree. Shedeur was a better college player, no doubt. We have to remember, though, and this is why teams either whiff or look like geniuses, and most of the time they whiff. You're drafting a guy off projection. So yes, in today's moment in time, I think anyone who watched college football would say Shedeur was a better quarterback than Tyler Shough. But the Saints are projecting whether it is the arm strength, whether it is mobility, whether it is the size, the physical traits, that they believe in a year from now, by this fall, by 2 years from now, that Tyler Shough will be a better quarterback than Shedeur. And they might have egg on their face by then, and they might look like the biggest idiots, right? But that's why the pick is made. And again, I agree with you. I think Shedeur was easily the better college player. But when it comes to projecting, when it comes to trying to do your job as scouts, you're not taking a player for what they are right now. You're taking for what you think they will be. And that's why the pick was made. And again, the Saints might look like morons when this is all said and done. Like morons. But in the moment, I get why it was done. And I understand the impact that Shedeur would have had on New Orleans. The seats would be sold out. The jerseys would be selling. And I get that. And I love that. But the Saints obviously feel like Tyler Shough's ceiling is higher. For him to be ranked as their second best quarterback is telling. Nakia Brox with the super chat. Thank you so much for the support. I apologize if I didn't get the first name wrong. Right. I really apologize for that. But thank you so much for the support. Greatly appreciate all you guys here sending in your super chats and even all your comments you guys send in. You guys have been fantastic so far. We'll keep it rolling here. We're not going anywhere anytime soon. Gary says, Derek Carr, Loomis gave him that terrible contract. Yep. Gilly says, I'm pissed. What the F are we doing with this QB? We should have gotten Will Johnson. E. Jones says, Saints going to be ass again this year. Don't get your hopes up. Consistently trash. My ceiling was not going to be very high for them, regardless of what the pick was going to be tonight. This is a team that has a lot of work to get done, and you're hoping that Kellen Moore is the right guy for the job and he can get them on the right track. Matthew says, appreciate you as always, Chris, for all the coverage. Always look forward to it. Thank you for the kind words, Matthew. I really do appreciate it. And while you guys are here, reminder, if you haven't already, please hit the like button. It really helps out the channel. And make sure you guys subscribe to Bucher Media's YouTube channel. You know, we got the round 3 pick coming up. We're going to have coverage for that. We'll make sure we have something there for you guys on that pick. And obviously tomorrow with day 3, round 4, round 5, round 6, round 7, we'll be here for all of it. So again, if you guys don't want to miss anything, make sure you guys subscribe. We're going to keep doing these live streams and having everything going on. And obviously with this pick with Tyler Shough, this will linger into the next couple of days, right? Like I'm thinking maybe Sunday or Monday we'll have ourselves a nice long live stream and talk about it then. But let's keep it rolling for now. Jediah says, watch Shedeur be rookie of the year caliber and Tyler Shough get benched for Rattler by week 8. Maybe the second one happens. Can't deny that. The first one, though, like, let's see where Shedeur goes. He might go somewhere where there's no chance he starts next year. You know? Justin to get me cash says, I'm done. Randy says, why 32 teams are not picking Sanders? Hint, mediocre. I mean, that is what they're thinking. Whether or not they end up being right, we'll see. But that's what they're thinking. Victorious 504 says Kellen can relate to his own kind better than Kellen being a quarterback, so he chooses Shough over Sanders. Simple as that. And I understand that. We just have to trust in Kellen's research. And we'll see, man. Look, either Kellen knows what he's doing at quarterback or he doesn't. You know? Buku Stat Guy, Tyler Shough, 4.63, 40-yard dash. Deshaun Watson, 4.66. Andrew Luck, 4.67. Mahomes, 4.7. Joe Burrow, 4.7. I mean, that does matter, guys. It does matter. Warrior for God says, stop complaining, people. My goodness, wait and see what he is. I agree. If he sucks, we will talk about it. And I'll bring on like a little violin and I'll play it. And you guys can all just like bombard the chat with like, hey, I was right. He stinks. And I'm not even saying he's going to be good. But let's just see how it plays out. Jay Rambo with another super chat. All I hear is excuses for them, respectfully. Excuses for who in terms of front office, coaching, the pick? Which one? If it's front office, I can't tell you enough, Jay Rambo, and I really do mean this. I don't think this front office should even be making the picks right now because they have really whiffed so many times. So, like, my frustration level with Mickey Loomis, Jeff Ireland, like, it's been at an all-time high for months. For coaching, I have a ton of patience with Kellen Moore right now because he hasn't coached a game. And as for Shough, I have my concerns. I don't know if he's going to be good. Like I said, I think history will tell you that he probably won't because it'd be an anomaly for him to end up being a good pick. But I'm also willing to see how this plays out. Chili said, Foskey isn't a QB though, Chris, come on. No, and I get that, right? Positional value matters. I can't disagree with that. But I'm just saying there are people acting like the Saints just threw away a second-round pick for the first time ever, when in reality, unfortunately, they've been throwing around second-round picks everywhere, all the time. So I'm just not going to be surprised. Travis says, conviction, great money ball argument. Just tell me he has a hot girlfriend, and that's why we're getting a good quarterback. Well, he is married. You know, respectfully, she is very attractive, but I don't think that's why they made the pick. Justin Davis says, my plan was play a young QB and see what happens anyway. This is actually the best route to move forward. I agree. Look, I think the worst route would have been they bring back Derek Carr and his, fake shoulder injury, and they win 7 games again because then you're caught in no man's land. So either Tyler Shough plans out and we're all going to be really fucking happy, or he stinks and they're going to be picking the quarterback top 5 next year anyway, and we're done with the Saints being in no man's land for where they're selecting. So that's kind of where we're at. Just trying to keep up with what pick was made right now. So I apologize for turning my head over here. Some guy says Daniel Jones. Yeah. Jawan Johnson was Shough's teammate at Oregon. Marcus says, yeah, how crazy is that? How crazy was that? Mo says you didn't need a tackle in the first. Guards were way more of a problem last year. Okay, cool. Understandable. My argument would be this. If they don't plan on keeping Trevor Penning, then you do need a tackle. Also, which guard were they going to take? They like Banks. And also, if let's say, and I don't believe this is the case, but let's say they really like Penning to stay at right tackle, you can kick either Fuaga or Banks at left guard. So someone's going to play guard out of those first-round pick type guys at some point. April says, Philly fans hated the Hurts pick, and look how that turned out. I'm going to have hope. Fair point. I will say about Hurts, I think way more established, obviously, a winner at Alabama, winner at Oklahoma, Heisman finalist type quarterback. So it is a little bit different. But to your point, if we go back when the Eagles did select Jalen Hurts, people were livid. Different situation. Obviously, they had Carson Wentz. A lot of people were really frustrated that they took another quarterback. But, we just don't know. I think that to me would be the example more than anything. Not to what Shough can be, because I don't think Tyler Shough plays anything like Jalen Hurts. I think the only quarterback who was similar to Jalen Hurts in this draft class was probably Jackson Dart. And even then, I have concerns about Jackson Dart as well. I think that it's just proof that we don't know. We don't know. He might absolutely suck. But let's see how it plays out first. Let's see how it plays out. Drew Brees Lover 9 says, Carr thought they were going to get Sanders. If this happened, he would have panicked, but he sees Tyler and is relaxed now. I don't know about that. I really don't know about that. Because if the Saints took Tyler Shough, right, and they took him they took him because there's conviction in him being the quarterback this year, then Derek Carr is not long for the Saints anyway. So we'll see. I don't disagree with this idea that Derek Carr was threatened by certain things. I do think Derek Carr did not like Spencer Rattler being QB2 as opposed to Jake Haener being QB2. I will give people that last season. I don't disagree with that at all. But I don't know if Shough being the pick over Shedeur means Carr comes back. I kind of think Carr's done anyway. Terrell Johnson says, we're acting like Shedeur's generational. Oh my God, y'all are unbearable. Welcome to the current state of sports, right? Sports talk and how everyone reacts. Like, Shedeur is going to be generational. Tyler Shough's going to suck. That's just kind of like what fans have kind of said. And guess what, guys? There's probably a better chance that both of them suck. You know? That's just kind of how it is. Everyone, especially when it comes to the draft, wants to just be right more than anything else. And me personally, I just want the Saints to be good. Zach King Superfan says, Chris, do you think Taysom is gone? I don't know about gone. I will say, though, listening to Loomis earlier this week does sound like he's going to need a lot more time than we initially thought for him to be ready. And ain't that a damn shame? Because when it comes to, playmakers for the Saints, there's not a lot like Taysom Hill, obviously, when it comes to being an electrifying player who can really give this team a new look and kind of spark up the offense. So that part does stink, no doubt about it. Dude is old enough to be on the coaching staff. Technically not wrong. Trey says, I don't agree with taking Shough at 40. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You guys can absolutely disagree with the pick. Obviously, most of you do disagree with the pick. I'm not blaming you guys. Chung says, Haener, Ian Book, Tyler Shough. I do think Tyler Shough's significantly better than the other two. Just my opinion. I do think he's better than the other two. I think the one that I was least excited about was Ian Book, because I used to watch Ian Book at Notre Dame. I'm like, I think he's one of those good college quarterbacks and not cut for the NFL. Now, I watched Jake Haener, and this is how you never know with guys. Jake Haener, the one thing I liked about him at Fresno State is he was a gamer. Big-time gamer, played through injuries, real tough, had that kind of like chip on his shoulder. And then you watch him in the NFL, and he looked like he was kind of shitting his pants sometimes. And again, it's easy for me to say, I'm just talking behind a microphone. But, the NFL is so different. It's really tough to tell whether or not these guys are going to pan out. Now, could Shough join that line of Jake Haener, Ian Book, Garrett Grayson? Yeah, maybe. Odds would probably be in that favor, but maybe he's not. Maybe he ends up being the starting quarterback for a long time for the Saints. Chung says, Mickey is a clown. I can't disagree with that one, man. Draft is too deep to reach for the seventh best quarterback at 40. You want to say reach for a quarterback, fine. Seventh best quarterback? Again, what Mel Kiper has on his board is not what the Saints have on their board. It's not. And maybe Mel Kiper's right. But it's just not how it works. The Saints had Shough as their second best quarterback. Doesn't mean they're right. They could be absolutely wrong. But that's what they had. Just A. Davis says, I like the plan. Give Kellen his guy and peace of mind. Build out everything else. Got to lean into your coach. Appreciate the optimism. Trey says, I would have rather McCord. I do think if they'd gone with one in day 3, I think McCord would have been the guy that enticed me for sure. And I thought that was going to be someone on the radar because Dan Orlovsky, who's still close with Kellen Moore, and they had history back in Detroit when they're on the Lions together. He mentioned McCord as a potential option for the Saints. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Joshua says, I hate Mickey Loomis. I'm not watching this year at all. Arden says, guys, let's give him a chance. He's a talented quarterback, and our line is amazing now. Well, I don't know about amazing now. You want that to be a really good offensive line, and you're hoping that this team can really, really develop and have a dominant unit in the trenches, because I think if the Saints are going to establish anything, it comes with that, right? Because if the O-line's cooking, then the run game gets working. If the run game is working, play action pass will be more effective, less pressure on the quarterback, especially for a rookie. So, everyone's going to be mad, but, to have Fuaga and Banks now as your tackles, you're trying to build around this rookie quarterback. Who knows? Also, let's see, man. Who's to say that Shough doesn't end up getting the best out of Chris Olave and vice versa, right? Because I think Chris Olave is due for a monster year. I don't think it was going to happen with Derek Carr, though. I think that ship has sailed. If they took Tyler in the 4th, 5th round, no one bats an eye, but a second-round pick, come on, man. Even you got to admit it. If they took him in the 4th or 5th round, you know what I would have thought about it? I would have thought that they just used another flyer on a mid-round guy on day 3, where it's like, You're taking a stab, you're hoping it works. Now, you are still taking a stab, hoping it works in the second round. But when you're taking that guy at 40 and your coach is Kellen Moore as opposed to Dennis Allen, so it's a quarterback leading this team as opposed to a defensive-minded coach, I do think there is a vision here where there wasn't a vision for Jay Kaner. And even though I am still a Spencer Rattler guy, I do think deep down there's got to be a decent quarterback somewhere in there. There was no vision for him as well. They drafted him and then basically said he's going to be in a QB2 competition in the middle of the fucking season. And I think that was malpractice by the coaching staff. So, look, if they took him 4th, 5th round, yeah, people would say, oh, it's great value on the big board. But I said, all right, well, how much do you like this guy if you took him 4th, 5th round? It's a little different for me. Take him pick 40 overall. Does that mean he's going to be great? Absolutely not. Does it mean that this team has a vision, though, and they like this player? Yeah, they do. They clearly do. Forgive says it's crazy how Vegas has the Saints win total at 6.5, and the fan base thinks they're a 3-win team. Look, they might end up being a 3-win team eventually, but for everyone complaining about that means they're going to be picking first anyway. John Carter says, folks are losing their minds. Shough is the same age as Penix last year. He'll be 26 in September, but I wouldn't pick any quarterback from this class. That's fine. That's fine. I agree with that. Sammy's World says, I'm not sure dude can beat out Rattler. Is he older than Rattler? I do believe he's older than Spencer Rattler. I'll pull it up. I believe he's a year. They're both. So put it this way. He's a full year older. Yo, do they have the same fucking birthday? That's crazy. Let me see that. Wow. Yeah. Rattler and Shough are both born on September 28th. Shough is a full year older. Man, that's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. All right, I'm going to scroll up here. I'm going to cut through some comments. Try to get more on track here because I am behind. I apologize for that, guys. Raphael says, bro, do you honestly think he can lead us to the playoffs? Right now? No. First, I don't even know how he's going to play in the NFL. I don't think if Derek Carr was the starter, they were going to make the playoffs. So, no, I don't think a rookie quarterback will take them to the playoffs. I don't. Lance says, Kellen Moore has a plan. Obviously, he knows football. I hope his plan works, but I hate this pick. Fair enough. Noah Trill says, fancy to stop sending hard-earned money to send them to the Super Bowl to jack them. Look, that is the message, right? That is the message for angry fan bases, right? You want to send a message, just don't go to the games. I agree with that. Fire on the Bayou says, so Tyler was best available. Man, get the fuck out. Again, I'm not saying he was my best available. He was the best available quarterback for the Saints on their board. Again, this is not coming from me. I'm not chatting my ass off. Like, the Saints quarterback board was Cam Ward and then Tyler Shough. You don't have to agree with it. I don't know if I agree with it. I don't. But that's how their board was. This guy is the same age as Dak and Hurts and haven't taken a snap. He's too old to develop. Don't know about that part, but we'll see. Mo says Shuck's going to join a list of terrible picks. Possible. Very possible. Hashtag who's the general says Shough has a better arm, more accurate. He's NFL ready. Not to mention he sat here and played in an NFL offense. Not to mention scouts. Down said he was the best quarterback next to Cam. Chill. I mean, look, I'm not going to say I'm exhausted of this argument because I was going to say it's Saturday. It's only Friday. The man just got picked like an hour ago. But guys, this is either going to work and we're going to feel good about the Saints again, or it's not going to work and they're going to be back here next year taking a quarterback. And I will continue if I have to waste my oxygen on this, and I will, I promise. But for everyone getting mad, it is so simple right now. It is either going to work or they're going to be picking a quarterback top 5 next year. So whichever way you want it, that's the way it is. They were not going to start Spencer Rattler for all 17 games this year. They weren't. I can't tell you the reason. I would have liked them to go that route, but I can't tell you the reason why they didn't want to go that route. I don't know it. You're trying to justify the pick. It was a dumb pick, bro. So here's my thing, right? I don't have to justify anything. I've said when the Saints make a lot of picks, they're risky. This one more than ever, it's a quarterback. I don't have to justify anything. Whether or not it's a dumb pick, I can't say that. Let's see how it plays out. I really want to see how it plays out first. Ed says a lot of teams got turned off because Shador played bad against good teams. The bowl game, he sucked, but he had a very good career, and I would have been cool with him on the Saints. I would have been cool with him on the Saints as well. I wanted the Saints to take a quarterback at some point in this draft. The only one that I would have been like really frustrated with had the Saints drafted, maybe would have been Riley Leonard. I was not a fan of Riley Leonard. I think he's like one of those good college quarterbacks, just not an NFL dude. That'd probably be the one that would have got me a little frustrated, but I did want them to get a quarterback. Now, it's not the quarterback that everyone wanted, but this is where we're at. Chung says, Tyler Shough transferred from Oregon because he lost his starting job to Anthony Brown, a quarterback who's not drafted and is currently completing 48% of his passes for the UFL Houston Roughnecks. Yes. Yes, he did. Again, not the same player that he is now. But that's how college goes. Again, this is probably not a fair comparison because Tua's a good quarterback, right? But Tua pushed Jalen Hurts out there. And if you ask me today who's a better quarterback, I think Jalen Hurts is a better quarterback than Tua. This is how it goes. And by the way, Shough, obviously I get that, right? Like it is embarrassing because I watched Anthony Brown a lot, and Anthony Brown, you can tell, was an NFL quarterback. But we've seen that before in college. We've seen Cam Newton get pushed out of Florida. Now, for reasons other than his play. College is weird, man. There's some guys that just work out better in the pros, and some guys that end up being shitty in the pros despite being great college players. Again, Shough, history-wise, the odds are in the favor of him being a bad quarterback. This is how it is. It's very hard to be good in this league. But we'll see how it pans out. Fire in the Bayou says, who asked for a 26-year-old rookie? Kellen Moore. But other than that, probably not that many. He's not more accurate than Shedeur. Come on. I can't disagree with that. I think Shedeur is statistically the most accurate college quarterback. I think statistically. You know? Cool Cuts TV says, great job covering the draft, though. Kudos to you. I know people hate the pick. Look, there's nothing more. I don't want to say I dread it, but like, there's nothing worse than when like I know, like, I'm chronically on Twitter. I know what the pulse of the Who Dat Nation is 99% of the time. I could be off sometimes. I knew coming into today there was a very good chance they were going to draft him. There's a lot of like tea leaves pointing in that direction, and now when the pick gets made, right, it's almost like they feel like fuck, because you know everyone's going to be mad. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't be mad, right? I've always said you either like a prospect or you don't. Make your own opinion, that's fine. But I usually like to be in agreement with the Who Dat Nation. I think I am for the most part. But like in this particular situation, especially with Kellen Moore not coaching a game yet, I'd like to see how this works out for him before I make any judgment. Is it a risky pick? Absolutely. Was I banging the drum for them to draft Tyler Shough? No, I wasn't. I wasn't. And if you told me a month ago Saints could have gone Kelvin Banks at 9, Shedeur at 40, I'd be like, oh yeah, sign me up. That sounds great. But clearly, Saints just didn't value him as much as other teams. Or clearly right now, not a lot of teams, unfortunately, for him. And I do hope he gets drafted soon and has a great career. It's tough. I love talking Saints. I love obviously chatting with you guys. I love getting all your comments in. You guys are always fantastic, regardless if it's good, bad, whatever. But yeah, it just kind of, it stinks when I know everyone's going to be upset because obviously I want Saints fans to be happy. And unfortunately, we have not been happy in a long time. And I know this is just going to kind of weigh on people till we get to the start of the season. And I know the first pass this guy throws that ends up going to the other team, there's going to be shit that really is going to bother people. And I get it. All I could say for me personally is I'm going to wait a couple games. I'm going to see how he plays, and then I'll pass my judgment there. And by the way, like, it's the NFL. You have to earn everything. If Tyler Shough goes out and he's not good in the preseason, he's not good in training camp, and Spencer Rattler's a better quarterback than him, then Spencer Rattler should get a start. And who knows? Maybe Spencer Rattler ends up being a really, really good quarterback for this team. Not even Shough. Maybe it's Rattler. And maybe it's neither, and they're coming back in the top 5 next year. So we'll see how it goes. You can fight it however you want, fan it however you want. If they're right, everyone's going to act like they weren't mad about it. And if they're wrong, everyone's going to say, I told you so. This is how it goes. Xavier says, think we get Cam Scatterbo? I mean, maybe. I don't know if that's the running back they would like, though. He seems like a 49er type guy to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm bugging about that, but this isn't about Shough. It's about front office ownership screwing both organizations with their awful decisions. I am 100% cool with that. I am 100% cool with that. I can't stress enough. I think the Saints don't get enough shit from the national media because they're irrelevant right now, which is the worst place to be. Because if this was like New York or if this was Chicago, when it comes to those sports towns for football, when there's a problem, everyone gets on their ass. And unfortunately for the Saints, you have a GM who's kind of bulletproof, right? Like he just gets to walk around unchecked, not having to worry about the mistakes that he makes. And he's made a lot of mistakes, draft mistakes, free agent mistakes, coaching mistakes. And I get that frustration. And I'm never going to tell Saints fans to pipe down on like the Mickey Loomis criticism or the Gail Benson criticism or the Jeff Ireland criticism or the Lauscha criticism. Like, I get that shit, right? Like, I get it. Like, the Saints have operated like a mom and pop shop in an NFL where you just got to do what's best for business. You don't got to worry about people's fucking feelings. And yet that's not how they operate. And I hate it, man. I absolutely hate it. I don't think that Mickey Loomis should still be the GM. I've said that many times. I am right now, though, trying to hope that Kellen Moore is the right coach and that he saw a quarterback that he believes he can work with. Because if the Saints are going to get out of the gutter right now, it's going to start with those two. And if not, they'll be picking a new coach in 2-3 years from now. Hope to God Mickey Loomis is fired by then, and maybe the Saints can get back to relevancy. So I understand. The process is fucked. It's the same thing with yesterday. I like that the Saints took Kelvin Banks because I think Kelvin Banks is going to be a good offensive tackle. I hate that they had to take Kelvin Banks, though, because Mickey Loomis and Jeff Ireland wasted a pick on Trevor Penning, who they traded a future first to make that selection without even knowing who was going to be on the board. So that's a reckless move. And they did that because they figured, we'll get a first-round pick the next year after Sean Payton. The way they operate drives me up a wall. And I'll never stop complaining about that because I think that Mickey Loomis gets a lot of credit for being carried by Sean Payton and Drew Brees. And that's a fact because when you take those two out of the equation, Mickey Loomis is an under 500 bum who hasn't done much when it comes to being a GM. That's the truth of the matter. So I get that. I am right now trying to put faith in Kellen Moore, in maybe them getting this pick right. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. And we'll be right back talking about how this team sucks. Sean says, would have rather Milroe can't teach athleticism, but can coach pass mechanics. Sean, I am with you on that. If the Saints were going to take a quarterback, that was the one that I wanted. I thought Jalen Milroe his upside is crazy high. Now, here's the thing, though. Did the Saints pick Tyler Shough because they like the upside, but they also believe he could start right now, where if they took Milroe, they would have had to sit him the whole year, and maybe they're ready to get rid of Derek Carr, or Derek Carr can't play because of his shoulder injury, and they feel like Shough's going to give them the best option now and could end up developing. That could be it. Matthew says, who would you like in the third? We'll see how the board shapes up. Let me see who's still even available right now. I've been kind of out of the loop because I've been, ranting for about an hour plus right now. But let's see. Best available. Well, forget about best available. Let's get away from best available. Let's just talk about positions. Saints need a corner. Saints need D-line help. They need another pass catcher. Need a running back. Definitely need to improve the secondary, whether it is corner or safety. Is Trey Amos still there from Ole Miss? He'd be someone that I like if he's still there. I don't know if he is. If they want to get guard, maybe Tate Ratledge from Georgia. Obviously, running back going to be a position that I wouldn't mind them taking. This is a loaded running back class. Dylan Sampson from Tennessee, someone I like. They want to keep the Texas connection going later on, day 3. Go get yourself Jaden Blue or like RJ Harvey or who's the other one that I did like? I can't remember. Was it DJ Giddens? I think it was the Kansas State kid. So I'd like to see him get a running back at some point. Just Call Me Trey says, the point is not that we whiffed on picks before. The point is that he wasn't the best quarterback prospect available. Shador and Milroe are better prospects, simple, rather than go to the other needs. Again, it was, for most people, that's how they had the board. The Saints didn't. And they might end up looking like idiots. Now, just want to throw out there, NFL teams like Tyler Shough way better than everyone else. He had 7 top 30 visits. 7. So maybe that's because they wanted to get the medicals in. It's possible. But I think it is also very possible that teams just really liked him way more than, the analysts on ESPN and NFL Network did. Rodney says we won't make the playoffs for the next 10 years. We are a stupid franchise. That is definitely possible. What are they on right now? The last time they made the playoffs was 2020 season, I believe. So, guess halfway there, right? Aaron says there's a reason every team passed on Shador. Guess we'll see. How do you rookie haze a guy older than half the team? It's a valid question. Very valid question. I don't know the answer though, so If you guys have the answer for that, let me know. But I don't know how you do that. Gary says, no way in hell this team wins 6 or more games this year. I agree. Lou says, Dan Orlovsky says what it is. Kellen Moore can't handle Shador's personality. I tell you this right now, if that's true behind the scenes, he should not be a head coach. Possible. Look, I think that was the case for a lot of teams. Like, for example, the Giants, right? Giants were in the quarterback market, and they needed one, obviously. I'm not surprised that they didn't go Shador. Like, they got 2 quarterbacks. I mean, a coach and GM who are kind of like almost on the way out here. And the last thing they probably want is for, Dion to be lurking, where it's like, hey, if I'm not good, Dion might be the next head coach, or at least that's what people are going to say. Like, it is part of it. Do I think it's right? No. But I know it's part of it. Wendell says, oh my God, I think the Saints really waiting on another Manning. His grandpa did not win a Super Bowl for us. Dylan says he had injuries that aren't recurring injuries, ran last year, which is why he didn't get injured. I like it because if he doesn't work out, you get a top pick next year at a high-value QB, and if it works out, it would be amazing. You don't have to give him the same development time as Sanders. Scott says, I'm so excited we found our future quarterback and win 2 Super Bowls. God willing, man. God willing. Mo says they won't pick a quarterback if they're top 5 next year. Their excuse will be that Shough is still developing. We don't know that. We got to stop talking in hypotheticals and always being negative. And I am very negative when it comes to the Saints sometimes, but like, come on. Mo says you didn't need to take Banks. Guard was way worse than tackle last year. Dude, they do not want Trevor Penning to be their offensive tackle of the future. They didn't want him to be there. So what are you going to do? They take Banks, who, by the way, and I said this yesterday, so you guys go back, Banks was almost drafted 6. So I know a lot of people like to complain about, on the big board, he was 13 for Mel Kiper. Okay, and the Raiders almost took him at 6. Like, let's just relax. Donald says the Saints love injury-prone players. Good thing we have an amazing health staff. Oh, wait. All right, look, that part does scare me. I can't deny that. Sanaya says, RJ Harvey, day 3. Please, I would love that. Dylan says, Jalen Milroe, the biggest certainty in the draft, to be a bust. We'll see. Cam Scat in the 3rd round. I'd be cool with that. I'd be cool with that. Look, Saints need to get another running back at some point. I think this is the best running back draft in a while. And I'd like to see if the Saints can go out there and get some juice for this backfield. Dylan says we're saying the same thing about Bo Nix, but look at him now. I trust me, I go back to this all the time, right? Like, and Bo Nix was different because Bo Nix, he had better college production and he started longer, but like, everyone loves to say that they're right about shit. And I remember last draft, everyone clowned Sean Payton. Sean Payton went to Denver and he waited and he drafted Bo Nix. Yeah, how fucking stupid do you look now? Bo Nix looked awesome at the end of last year. I remember that shit, by the way. I remember that. And by the way, no one has said a fucking peep about J.J. McCarthy who hasn't played a game. Is Minnesota going to get shit if he ends up being bad? No. But the Saints take Tyler Shough at 40 and everyone acts like they just committed a fucking crime. Like, come on, guys. Let's just see how it plays out. Marcus says, don't be surprised if Sean McVay takes Sanders. Stafford's getting up there in age. I actually do think that'd be a great landing spot for him. I really do. Ted says, would you compare Shough to Josh Allen? No, I would not. Again, I do believe he's very similar to Derek Carr. I do. And again, I know Saints fans are going to hate that. But I don't hate Derek Carr because of how he plays quarterback. I hate Derek Carr because of how he conducts himself. And there's a lot of phony business that goes on over there. That's why I dislike him. AJG says we're going for executioners, not improvisers. Kellen Moore has a method to this. Seemed to be madness. Trust. Jay Hoodie says, no, Shador is crazy. I see a lot of Breeze in Shador. I mean, I personally don't. And the reason I say it, the reason I say that is the one thing that Drew Brees and no quarterback has this anymore. So I'm not going to rip Shador for this. But Drew Brees, in my opinion, had the best footwork that I've seen from a quarterback. You got a guy who's like listed at 6 foot, but he's less than that. And he's on his goddamn tippy toes like a ballerina maneuvering the pocket. No one does it like that. And the one thing I say about Shador that is concerning, his footwork is all over the place. Like he's taking extra drops than he needs to. He's kind of not trusting where he's got to go feet-wise. Now, does that mean Shador's going to be bad? Absolutely not. I am a Shador fan. I hope Shador has a really successful career. I gain nothing from wishing on this guy's downfall. I hope he has a great career. And it would be good for the NFL for him to be good. But, I didn't see the Breeze stuff. I didn't. And it doesn't mean that I didn't think he was going to be good, but I definitely didn't see that personally. Doesn't mean that you're wrong. I just think that footwork-wise, Drew has the best footwork that I've ever seen. And Shedeur, obviously, personally, didn't really love what I saw footwork-wise from him. Marcus says, why the Arch Manning talk? It's not a guarantee. Comes out next year. I couldn't agree more with you, man. Couldn't agree more with you. Marcus says, front office should just tell Derek Carr to fuck off so he can go make YouTube videos with his fake injury. I hope they do, man. I hope they do. So I'll take a couple more comments, and then we'll get out of here so everyone can enjoy the rest of the draft. We get ready for the third round because I think third round, before you know it, it'll be here. Saints have 2 third-round picks, 71-93. Any ideas? Let's pull it up here real quick. All right, let's go to our Saints, obviously. In terms of needs, talked about it before. I think they could use a cornerback because I'd love for them to push Alontae Taylor back inside and have that corner play opposite of Kool-Aid McKinstry. Would love for the Saints to be able to add some D-line help. Would also love for the Saints to be able to add a pass catcher. So, if the Saints can do that, add a pass catcher at some point, or edge help, or corner help, I'd be cool with that. I think that would be the positions that I'd like them to address. I wanted them to get a tight end in this year's class. I don't know if Harold Fannon's still up there from Bowling Green, but I'd like for them to address that. Maybe they can go out there and get the Stanford wide receivers, one that people like a lot. Maybe they go get themselves a receiver at some point. So we'll see. I also wouldn't mind them taking a running back. I don't know if they will. And then obviously for offensive line, if they were to go, add another player at some point, they could use guard help. So we'll see what happens. Arch Manning talk, some of the most ridiculous shit I've ever seen people delude themselves into. I agree. Ted says all this hate and Sanders still not picked. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I think third round of the Steelers is possible. I think that would be a really good landing spot for him. Obviously, I feel for the guy, right? Like, this kind of sucks. You're just sitting there kind of waiting for your moment, and it's prolonged. But, such is life, unfortunately, in this brutal league. So, again, guys, Saints, let me go through this and I'll get back. Alvin did visit Colorado and Dion. You think Mickey asked him what he thought about Shedeur? Probably not. Probably not. But who the fuck knows? I mean, crazy things that happen, but I doubt it. I think that was more of a cool thing that Alvin wanted to do. I mean, Dion's built a pretty cool culture up there. You think Trey falls to 71 and we would pick him? Don't think he falls there. If he does fall there, I do think he'd be an excellent pick for the Saints. He's someone I wanted at 40. So then just convince yourself, guys. Flip that with Chuck at 40 and Trey at 71, and then you'll be feeling good. But anyway, guys, we're going to head out of here. We got 2 more picks for the third round coming up. So we'll cover those for now. Third round, 2 picks there. We'll see if the Saints end up making a move. But we'll be here to cover it here at Bucra Media. So make sure you guys subscribe. And as always, stay tuned for more content here from the Straight Up Saints podcast, the destination for the Who Dat Nation. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back shortly.